Welcome everybody to another short bus tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to use the relatively new semi-fluid generator. This should be a pretty quick tutorial. There's not too much to go over with this, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys what it was about, maybe compare it to the lava generator, or the geothermal generator, and show you guys, just give you a rough idea of what you can do to do some mass production for the semi-fluid. So let's go ahead and get this tutorial started. Alright everybody, what we got here is we got the geothermal generator here on the left and the semi-fluid generator on the right. Just so you know, the textures in this texture pack do not have the semi-fluid in there. It has been updated in quite a while. So we just get the vanilla look of it from the IC2 builders. So that's pretty much it for that. Alright, so here is the geothermal. I just want to show you guys what it takes to build each of these, or at least give you a rough idea. Geothermal needs 4 pieces of glass, 2 empty cells, 2 iron item casings, and a generator. And the generator itself is a battery and a basic machine and a furnace. Alright, so relatively simple to make the geothermal. Takes just a little bit more here for the other one. For the semi-fluid, we need 4 item casings, 4 universal fluid cells, and the geothermal generator. So pretty much what you get from the last one, plus a few extra things, a couple extra iron and whatever it makes to make these. I think it takes 10 or something like that. Let's go ahead and show you what we got set up over here. Alright guys, what we got here is we got 3 semi-fluid generators hooked up to a bat box, and we also got a geothermal also hooked up to a bat box. Now if you're not familiar with what the semi-fluid generator is going to be used for, is it allows you to use the Forestry and Buildcraft fuels to produce industrial craft power, the EUs. One nice thing really about these, and there's a couple nice things about these, to be honest, and I'll probably end up using them in my world if you're watching my bus ride series. I'll eventually end up using some of these, is if you go the full 9 yards with forestry and create the biomass and or the ethanol, you can use that to produce both Buildcraft power, which I really like the Buildcraft power, but you can also now use it in the semi-fluid generators to help create some EU, or the industrial craft power. All right, what we got here on the left, we're just going to run a little test here. I'm going to show you guys what it's all about and how much power each one of these produce, and then we're going to compare it to the geothermal down there. But the first one here, we've got the biomass, the forestry biomass. The second one is actually Buildcraft Oil, which is, if you've used that before, they're pretty hard to find, and a lot of times you'll find them way out in the ocean. So, and they go pretty fast. Usually don't get too much out of them. But then we also have got down here at the end, we've got ethanol, which used to be called biofuel. It's now called ethanol, and that is by refining or running through a still the biomass. So you get the ethanol. So let's go ahead and throw a bucket of each of these, and of course that last one is a geothermal. Let's go ahead and throw a bucket of each product into these machines, see what they produce, and we'll be back. All right, everybody, that's done. It really didn't take too long. First one here, let's go ahead and show you what each one produced here. All right, first one is the biofuel. Okay, 1 bucket of biofuel produced, it's actually 8,000. Some got lost somewhere. It produces 8,000 EU. Okay, so that's not too bad. The oil produced 16,000, so it produced twice as much as the biomass. All right, and then this third one, which is the ethanol, and it produced 32,000, so it produced a decent amount of fuel for that one. And last one is the lava, and the lava in the geothermal produces 10,000 EU. So all pretty good. As far as comparison here, the geothermal outputs 20 EU per tick. All right, so pretty much what that translates to is the 1 bucket of lava takes 25 seconds to completely discharge into 10,000 EU. To produce 10,000 EU, it takes 25 seconds. All right. For comparison, what I did for the to run my test on the semi-fluid was I used the oil bucket since it produced over 10,000, and then I ran my stopwatch and timed how long it took to get to 10,000 EU, and then I stopped my stopwatch, and it took about 30 seconds. So if you calculate there's 20 ticks per second, it came out to you're going to get about 16, and it's a rough estimate. It's going to take about, you get about 16 or 17 EU per tick from the semi-fluid. So you get a little less output for the semi-fluid, but really that's not too bad of a difference. You could take, if it's 16 EU per tick, and I'm thinking that's about what it is, because they like to try to use base 8 when they're doing their power units. But you could take two of those and dump them into one bat box, and you could provide enough power into the bat box between the two to match its output. So that's not bad. And with the ethanol, if you're producing the ethanol, it takes a bit of work to get the ethanol, but if you're producing the ethanol, you're going to get a decent amount of power out of it with 32,000 units out of it. So you can really get good power out of these, and I think in the long run it's going to be worth it. If you've got easy access to oil, burn that oil if you want. Or once we get going, I'll show you guys here in just a second a quick setup of what you can do to kind of automate and produce the biomass and the ethanol. Lava, it's good early on if you need power. The problem with it is you need a pump. Well, you can't use an industrial craft pump because it only sucks up one source block, so you can't really automate anything with it. Whereas in the pump, the Buildcraft pump, you can set it into a pool of lava, and it's going to get a decent amount of lava in a radius before you have to move it. So you can get a decent amount. But the problem with it is when you do it, you're going to leave a dry lake bed. Now that might not be too big of a problem for you, especially if you pump it out from underground. It's not going to be that big of a deal for you. But if it's an above ground and you're worried about aesthetics and it's near your base, you may not want to do it. Or if you do, you're going to have to fill it in because it'll probably look a little funky. Where these would really come in handy is in the nether. They don't output really that much power, but in the nether, and most people really don't spend a lot of time there, so it'll be good to go and just charge up your backpacks or your drills or whatever else you need there while you're there. It'll produce enough power and store enough power for you there. So that's where I really recommend that other than early game activities. The rest of the time with this stuff, let's go ahead and I'll show you guys what I've got set up over here to give you an idea of how you can automate your biomass and ethanol production. What we got over here is just a real kind of basic, and it's not real efficient, but we got a basic setup here on how to automate your biomass and ethanol production. It's pretty simple. Like I said, it's a little inefficient. There's a few things I could change about this. I'm not going to get into great depth on how to do this. I'm just going to kind of break it down on how everything works and what you need in order to produce your biomass and biofuel. If you guys want to see a more in-depth tutorial on how to do this, on how to use the Forestry Arboretum farms, multi-farms here, and if you guys want to know how to produce more in-depth different ways of producing all your biomass and ethanol, let me know. We can go into that. But right now I'm just going to kind of give you a basic rundown on how to do this. Right here, all I've got up here is apple oak trees. These aren't necessarily the best to help produce biofuel, but early on it works really good because we get the apples, and then of course you get the saplings when the trees fall apart. You get a ton of saplings out of them, but most importantly you get the apples out of them. And the reason why you need the apples is here in the squeezer we're going to use to help create our biomass, we're going to use the fruit juice from this. And the nice thing about the apples, and there's multiple ways to do this, you can get the honey. There's several items you can use to help create biomass, and those items are the fruit juice, honey, and you can even use water. But what you use here is actually a multiplier. for creating your biomass. And the fruit juice and the honey give you a 1.5 times multiplier. The water only gives you one. So you get decent more production out of your fruit juice. But the nice thing about the apples, and you probably saw it pop up right there, is you get mulch as a byproduct. And that's important for the next step in the fermentation process here. Here in this chest, I've got the mulch that comes from the squeezer and the saplings. And this is probably the most inefficient part of this automation process. I should not have my saplings come into the same chest as my mulch here. It just helps. It just kind of ruins the process here because you can see all my mulch coming out, but it's not pulling out any of my saplings. I have so much mulch in there that in the cycle to go back around, you always got to have a return cycle. It just comes back faster than it can dump it out, so it never reaches a sapling. So I should have those in two different spots here. So not a big deal. That's an easy fix. But the next step here is the fermenter. The mulch comes in here. This is what you use as your fuel, and there's three things you can use for this. You can use mulch, you can use compost, and you can use fertilizer. And what this does, like I said, it's a fuel. It kind of produces your work cycles and how much liquid consumption you get out of each one before it's wasted. And with the mulch and compost, those are both equals. Their work cycle is 250, and that doesn't really mean much. It's the amount of time that the fuel will burn, pretty much is what it means. And the liquid consumption, that formula is used to help figure out how much biomass you're going to get out of it when it does all its calculations. And then up top here is your organic items that you can use. And there's a ton different organic items you can use. Most common is going to be your saplings. These are the vanilla saplings. Even though they're apple oak, they're not technically vanilla. These are vanilla as far as forestry is concerned. So you really only get you get about a quarter of a bucket per sapling. So it's an okay amount, but it's not too great. In comparison, as far as saplings go, the highest they have right now, at least listed in their forms, is the Maho sapling. And with that, you can actually get 1,500 millibuckets or Minecraft buckets, which is actually 1.5 buckets worth. 1,000 MB is equal to one Minecraft bucket. So you can get 1.5 buckets per sapling with those particular saplings. But with this, you can also use wheat, which gives you 100, about 1/10 of a bucket's worth of biomass. Cactus, which gives you 1/5. Sugar cane also gives you 1/5. Mushrooms give you 1/5. But you can get up to and actually use the industrial craft plant balls and the compressed plant balls. And the regular plant balls give you about 4/5, actually about 2/5 of a bucket, almost a half a bucket's worth. It gives you 400 MB for the plant balls, but the compressed plant balls give you about a half a bucket. So you can actually set up another process. Like I said, we can go into more depth with that if you guys want a special tutorial on how to do this. But you can automate it in a auto workbench to automatically make your compressed plant balls for you and spit them in here out of all your saplings, and so you're going to get more production out of that. Okay, but it takes the fruit juice, which is your multiplier, and it multiplies it by the consumption and the fire, and it depends on how much biomass you get out of it using what product. So fruit juice is going to be your best here. Mulch is going to be your best, and then this is really the only alternative that's going to make a big difference here. Okay, so then it comes in here, and we've got in this is our biomass. Okay, so and then we got it coming out here. Now there's two ways to turn your biomass, and you can use your biomass if you don't want to go any further. You can use that as I showed over there in the semi-fluid. And you're going to get, but you're not going to get as much production. You're going to get more oil or lava than power out of oil or lava than you will out of the biomass. So if you're going to go this far, you might as well go just the extra step and create the ethanol. Now it's going to take quite a bit to get the ethanol. This is a pretty slow process. But here we've got the still. There's two ways you can process your biomass into ethanol, and that is with this, the still, or you can use I believe it's the Buildcraft refinery. And both work almost equally as good. The only difference is that with the still, you actually get, you turn biomass into ethanol at a rate of 10 to 3 ratio, which is for every 10 biomass buckets, you get 3 ethanol buckets. Whereas with the refinery, it's on a 4 to 1 ratio. So you get about a quarter of a bucket's worth. It's about a quarter ratio, 25% ratio. So the still you get a little bit more out. So this is probably the better one to use, but I don't think it's quite as fast as the refinery. Both of them use a lot of power. I've just got a meek amount of power dumping into this, but that's pretty much it. It just, you set it up and it dumps in all your ethanol. This is a relatively slow process, so that's why it's important to produce your biomass. It's not going to take that long, so it doesn't matter if you're using the vanilla saplings or not. But if you want to produce a large amount of ethanol, then you're going to need to up your power to your still, and then you're also going to have to start using something like plant balls, or you're going to have to crossbreed your trees using bees. It's something we'll probably do later on in our series, in the bus ride series. But for now, we're not going to do it. I want to start gearing myself to this, at least start getting my auto farms going and all that good stuff, and get some Buildcraft power going in my play along world there, in my bus ride world. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, this was just kind of a basic run through. The semi-fluid generator is really something easy that can be used. Nothing too difficult about that. And you can use it with the oil. If you don't ever plan on using Buildcraft power in your world, and you just want to stick with industrial craft, well, you might as well be able to take advantage of the Buildcraft oil that's throughout your world, because usually there's a pretty decent amount. It's just a matter of getting to it. Is usually the toughest thing, because they're generally out in the ocean, or you're not going to find too many around your base. You're going to have to run a lot of pipe. But if it's there, you might as well use it. Use your semi-fluid generators and pump your oil into it directly, and you get a decent amount of fuel out of it. You're going to get more out of that than you are out of your lava. And then when you're done pumping out the oil, you're not going to really notice anything except for a small hole in the world, which you can easily fill in. Whereas in the lava, you're going to leave a big empty bed in the middle of your world. So with that, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys liked this little brief tutorial. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it, if you found it a little bit helpful. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click subscribe. I like trying to produce some quality stuff for you guys, and get you familiar with everything going on. If you know anybody who could find this useful, go ahead and share it with them. Throw it on your webpage. Do whatever you want. Google Plus it, whatever you need to do. Get it out there. Let them know I'm here. And you guys have a good one. I'll see you in the next tutorial.